not an actress, I'm not a performer, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a parent, but I had to kind of be all those things to be a teacher, at least to be a good one. Hi, welcome to my channel. I am Ava, and today I will be doing a very interesting video about why I quit teaching before I even started to teach. So on this channel I have been vlogging about my post-grad life on campus, and now I'm back home. So I majored in history with a minor in secondary education at the U of I, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and I decided not to go into teaching after graduating. I spent 4 years getting this degree, and I didn't go into teaching afterwards. So if you're a college student thinking about getting an education minor or a history major, or you're particularly thinking about going into the UIUC teaching program, this video will be very helpful for you. I'm going to break down the experience and tell you ultimately why I decided not to go into teaching. So first of all, the ed program at the U of I. So I actually came into the U of I with an anthropology major because I wanted to be a professor, but then I decided that I didn't want to devote my whole life to anthropology, so I decided to switch into history and secondary ed so I could be a high school teacher. And I have always liked history, I've enjoyed being in history classes, but I wouldn't say I'm obsessed with it like some of these people in the history classes were. Like being in there as a secondary ed minor, all my other secondary ed minor friends said the same thing, we felt like the odd people out. Like all the history majors in there, they knew the answer to every single question about every war, every battle, every little thing, and us secondary ed minors were not like that whatsoever. We were kind of there more for the teaching, but we were still placed in majority history classes because secondary ed was a minor. So my first qualm was that I think ed should have been a major. You take the same classwork as a major, but it's considered a minor. And I think the classes themselves were not very helpful. So I began taking education courses my sophomore year. All the classes were kind of centered around how to be inclusive, which is of course very important, but they weren't close enough to our student teaching experience or our graduation that we could really apply these methods. They were just basically trying to, I guess, prime our brains to be thinking inclusively, which is something I'm pretty open-minded, so this wasn't very helpful to me. I'm sure it was helpful to some, but the majority of students there, at least that I talked to, believe that this was not a very helpful approach. So we were not learning really teaching methods from the start, and we were not in a classroom until my junior year, second semester of college. Alongside that, our community was not really built, our community of education minors. As you know of the state of education today, it is kind of difficult to be going through an education minor as you're hearing all these things around you, like teachers don't make any money, you're never going to find a job, everything sucks. So we didn't really have that community to start with. When we were placed in education classes, it was people of all different education backgrounds. There was elementary ed, there was math people, English people, middle school, high school, and I was a high school person. And eventually we got more sectioned off into our cohorts junior year of classes that were only for history majors and secondary ed minors. So finally then we were able to kind of talk openly and grow closer, but it was so close to the end of college. We could have had that community from the very beginning. Alongside this lack of community, there was a lot of poor communication coming from the education department to the rest of us students. In my own personal experience, I had a lot of trouble obtaining a secondary ed minor. From the start, my application was one of 9 that was rejected out of all the people who applied, and my advisor said that there was literally no reason for this to happen. My application was beautiful, my grades were fine, this is an easy minor to get, but my application was rejected because the higher-ups there said that a lot of teachers were not taking student teachers anymore because they were always on their phones, because they were just not being good teachers. So they had to cut a lot of people from the program. So from the get-go, I kind of had a bad feeling about the education department. I was kind of given, it was kind of a sour feeling to be rejected for no discernible reason. But I was was able to appeal my rejection with like letters of recommendation and another essay, and then I made it in after that. Which, now that I'm thinking, I kind of wish I didn't reapply. I kind of wish I didn't. I kind of wish I took that as a sign, as saying that this is not for me. So after I was officially admitted into the program, I was able to take those higher level courses with other history majors and secondary ed minors. And junior year, second semester, I was placed in a middle school classroom in order to get my first teaching practicum done. So this was about 3 hours a week, and I only came in 1 day a week. As you've heard me say before, I was interested in getting a high school teaching degree, not a middle school teaching degree. So they kind of just like threw everyone at random places, and because I hadn't applied for the minor earlier, meaning that I got rejected from the minor earlier, I wasn't able to get a nice, high school placement. I had to get a middle school placement. But I was okay with it, and maybe it would teach me that I actually enjoyed teaching middle school, which I knew I wouldn't enjoy. I knew middle school was not for me, but anyway, I approached it with an open heart, open arms, and my experience was not good, I would say. It was fine. It was fine. I loved my cooperating teacher. She was great, but the students were just so hard to deal with, honestly. It was a lot of convincing students to not speak out during class, do their homework, rather than actual teaching. And I know that this is a lot of what elementary and middle school teaching is. You're teaching those valuable skills, but I wasn't interested in being a therapist or a parent. I was here to teach, and I guess that was my issue to begin with. I enjoy talking to other people, and I enjoy building relationships, but I don't think I wanted that to be a central part of my job. And this is the first time I discovered that. It was hard, but I pushed through it because I knew maybe once I got to teach at a high school, things would be different. So senior year, first semester was intense. So I was placed at an elite school on campus, which was a little bit difficult to adjust to. Senior year, we were required to go to the school, I think 6 hours a day rather than 3 the previous semester. And on top of that, we had a seminar twice a month to get us primed for student teaching. And so this seminar made us have, at least some of us have, a day that lasted from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and it was painful. So 8 a.m. we would start our teaching at school, and then we would have some education courses, and then at night a 2-hour seminar, and we were exhausted. We hated these days, but it did bring us closer together as a cohort. And as I'm saying cohort, I mean just the history majors with secondary ed minors. So there were about 37 of us who were part of this program, which was a good amount, but we did get very close, and I'll get into that later. That is a good part of the whole experience. So more about this elite school. It was very unrealistic of the environment of most schools we would be at. And I was told many times, I was sure to be reminded that this was not a normal experience. This is not how you will be teaching normally. So the school was basically a university prep school, and so a lot of the courses were super rigorous. Basically every course was like an AP course. Like one of the days I was teaching about the Chinese witchcraft scare of 1796 or something, and each of these lessons in world history was tailored around something super specific like that. So as a history major, I obviously did not learn about this very specific Chinese witchcraft scare, because as a secondary ed minor, we're supposed to get a well-rounded history education of all different fields and things like that. So it was definitely a fun academic challenge, but it wasn't really realistic. The students were actually wonderful there. They were very engaging. The teacher I was with there also kind of reflected more of my teaching style, which is a bit more impersonal and a bit more trying to get the information across in an engaging manner. Time for student teaching itself. This is a requirement for all Illinois teachers. You have to get student teaching experience before you're able to get certified as a full-time teacher. I was very nervous for student teaching because we didn't get a whole lot of information as to what this would be like. I didn't know that I would be essentially full-time teaching by the end of it. And also I was nervous because I was teaching a range of subjects. I was teaching economics, sociology, and eventually civics, which I didn't know at the very beginning. But economics, is something I despise. I took AP Economics in high school and I did not enjoy it whatsoever, but I was once again ready to approach it with an open heart, open arms, because maybe this would finally show me that teaching is right for me. This is what I need to do, and maybe economics is my passion. I don't know. Sociology was always fun for me. I got certified in it. I thought it would be a breeze, which it kind of was. It's important to note, as a history major, you might not get placed in history courses. I didn't really know that to begin with. I thought I would be teaching like US history, world history, something like that. But no, it was more of the broad range of social studies subjects. Once I got to the school, it wasn't so bad. It was a lot like my own high school, where the students were generally good and they accepted me as a teacher. They generally wanted to be there, I would say. It helped that I was in honors and AP courses, because those are generally students who, chose that path. It was a bit difficult for me personally because I'm kind of a quiet person. I'm maybe more passive than most other people. I had to confront my fear of talking in front of a group and taking up space, which was hard, especially in another teacher's classroom. But my cooperating teacher was wonderful. She was very helpful, and the teaching environment there was great. They were very supportive. And another good thing about this is I really did confront that fear, and I became a lot better at public speaking and talking to strangers. I feel like I didn't get much feedback from the students in me being like a super fun person or super engaging or anything like that. I don't think I am in that environment. I did try my hardest to make content clear and interesting and engaging and do cool ways of differentiating material, but I feel like none of it really stuck. It just kind of was meh. And I think this is maybe a student-wide issue now. A lot of people care less about school. Maybe this is a response to COVID or social media or something. Everyone's brains is rotted. Maybe I wasn't that engaging. I'm not a performer. I did not really enjoy having to basically perform every day. You have to be engaging every day in order to capture students' attentions. And that was exhausting for me. I'm not an actress. I'm not a performer. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a parent. But I had to kind of be all those things to be a teacher, at least to be a good one. Once again, this school was kind of considered a good school, so the therapy and parentage part was not really an issue here. So in terms of the work week, we did have to work 40 hours a week, and of course more at home when we graded and things like that. We were basically full-time teachers by the end. And the worst part of it all was there was no pay, no compensation, which, makes sense, like it's an internship, you're learning, but it just felt unfair to me for the amount of work that I was doing. This just made me more exhausted and more kind of fed up with the experience. But looking back, it did go by very fast. The bottom line is you really have to love it to go into it, because while I was not getting any pay, if I was getting pay, it would probably be meager. And of course there was things that I did like about the experience. I already mentioned a few before, but other things are that I liked coming up with ideas for games. I liked coming up with different ways to instruct the material, designing PowerPoints. And in summary, some of the things that I didn't really care for was talking to students all day. I know, that maybe makes me a mean person, a terrible person, but I just don't like to talk all day. I just don't like to talk all day. It's exhausting, and especially when I feel like I'm trying to force things, it just really drains me. Maybe that's the introvert part of me. Of course, once again, the 40-hour work week with no pay and then doing more work at home was very draining. I know that this student teaching experience was probably very different than a lot of my other peers had as their experience and what I would have in the real world. I was at a good school. Most schools, I would say, are average or low end in terms of academic achievement or motivation, engagement in class, behavioral issues. I got pretty lucky with my placement. Even with this luck, I wasn't completely sold on it. I knew that maybe I could do something else that would bring me more joy, satisfaction, and income. So I think right now, at this point in my life, I'm not ready to be a teacher. Maybe 10 to 15 years down the line, when I am more established as a human being, when I have a place that I want to live at, I can be a teacher. But right now, there's no way that I want to settle down anywhere with anyone. I want to explore everything life has to offer. I'm truly blessed by parents that support me, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to take this leap out of teaching into something else. Because right now, I don't have a job. If I went into teaching, I might have a job. I've been hearing mixed reviews from my other history major friends, because history, social studies in high school teaching is pretty competitive. It's hard to get a job in that because that's what a lot of people want to do. I think we were the biggest section out of any of the education minors. Right now, I don't need a full-time job right away, which is very useful because I had a marketing internship with the history department at my college, and I really enjoyed that. I love creating things, being creative. I loved creating graphics for Instagram and social media. That's kind of the field I'm looking into right now. Luckily, I had my mom who had connections to friends, family friends who just needed some random marketing help. And so that is what I'm doing right now. Instead of going right into a full-time job or really devoting all my energy into this, my number one priority for the longest time has been to travel. So that is what I'm going to be doing instead. I'll be going to Europe for 3 months. And I am so excited, and I'm so happy to not be going into teaching. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not saying that I will never be a teacher. I did get certified, so I paid all the fees, and I do have an Illinois teaching license just in case. It's a 5-year thing. We'll see where the next 5 years take me, but for now, I'm happy with my decision. So please feel free to leave any questions or comments you have in the comments below. I will be checking them, answering them. But for now, I would like to say thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned because while I travel, I plan to vlog a little bit. Bye!